All right, welcome to another edition of the Horsemen Pro Football Talk podcast. This is is it week 12?
Week 12, yep.
Yeah, it's a week 12 recap / playoff picture analysis, I guess. I'm Brad.
And I'm Hefe.
And again, the world traveler is not here. We're tired of making excuses for him, so we're going to keep moving. We definitely want to thank you for being here and listening and watching, whatever the case may be, and be sure to check us out and show us some love, share. Please like, share, and subscribe, and tell all your friends and help us get the word out. We certainly appreciate it. All right, so let's, what did we decide, the AFC?
Yeah, we can go with that.
Okay. Steelers, obviously, still in first place. Their game with Baltimore has been pushed back. It was supposed to be Thanksgiving evening, and they pushed it to Sunday, and now they pushed it to Tuesday. Is that right?
Yeah, right now it's supposed to be Tuesday, but I recently got a notification, an ESPN notification, saying that they don't even know, the Ravens don't know if they'll even be able to fly out of Baltimore. I think it's fly into Pittsburgh. I believe there's a big snowstorm in Pittsburgh. So it's looking more and more as the hours go on today, like the NFL is going to have to cancel that game because Baltimore can't even get there.
Okay. So I heard an interesting theory that the NFL is because of the bye weeks are pretty much gone, that the NFL is looking at potentially canceling, going ahead and begin canceling games just to make it easy, and looking at playoff percentage to rank the playoff teams. And I don't know what kind of, obviously to see them, I don't know what kind of approval they need with the owners. I mean, this is unprecedented, so I don't know. Have you heard anything else?
No, I haven't heard anything. And the win percentage thing to me, like it makes sense, right? Win percentage, but it makes more sense to me like if you do that in the NBA or MLB where you're playing 80 plus games, but in the NFL, if you lose one game out of the 16, that's what, like 7.5% or something like that, and that's just a big swing. I could see why they would do it like that, but it seems a little drastic to me.
Yeah, it's definitely a no-win situation, right? Because strength of schedule comes into play too. Obviously you got an easier schedule, you're going to have a higher win percentage, and that always comes into play because of the records, and we're seeing that with the NFC West. There is no right answer here, and it's easy to complain about what's happened. I know the Steelers aren't happy. There a lot of people aren't going to be happy. There's the COVID naysayers that aren't going to be happy, but I'm glad I'm not in this position to have to make this decision. This is a tough decision. There are millions of dollars at stake. The record books are at stake. You potentially leave someone out of the playoffs that could have gotten it together, made a run, and won a Super Bowl, and it changes history forever. We talked about that with the Tuck rule, that the Raiders didn't go on and win, and the Patriots did, and then the dynasty ensued. Had the Raiders won that game, there is no Tuck rule. Would the Patriots have been what they were? The butterfly effect. It's pretty deep, but at the end of the day, you can only do the best you can with what you have to work with, and I'm not so sure that adding weeks to the schedule and trying to reschedule games is going to be the answer. That seems kind of screwed up too, in the end. So I'm just glad I'm not making that decision.
Yeah, because I mean, the 18th week, when you really think about it, I feel like that's the one that is probably the most common sense. But then you got to think about, all those playoff teams, wild card teams that, if they don't have to play in that 18th week, they're getting a bye week instead of, somebody else that is getting in the playoffs, like a Ravens, who are probably going to get a bye week anyways, but just adds an extra bye week for teams that aren't supposed to get it. And competitive advantage and tradition. It'll be interesting to see what they want to do with that.
Yeah, and fair point. And then there's also who's resting who's resting their starters, who doesn't have to rest their starters. How so if the Steelers and the Ravens have to play each other, and there are playoff implications, and right now there's home field advantage at stake, so they don't get to rest their players. Other teams are like, oh well, now this game's been delayed, it's been pushed back. They have an advance notice, maybe they can, and then that gives them the advantage. I mean, we could what if this to death. I just don't envy them. So as far as I'm concerned, not that they care, but whatever decision they make, we'll probably break it down and critique it. But whatever the decision they make, I'm ultimately okay with, because there's so much to take in when making these decisions. It's just unfortunate we're at this situation, and it's unfortunate this game. If it was the Bengals and the Jags, nobody care. And I know we tease a lot of teams, and I don't mean that in any disrespect, other than they've got nothing to lose. There's a lot at stake with this game, and that's what really makes it unfortunate.
Yeah, and I kind of going to your point there. A lot of people over the weekend were talking about how, the league did everything they can and are still doing everything they can to get the Ravens and the Steelers to play and get as many players, that are supposed to be there in there so it can be a decent game. And then they let the Broncos go out there with no quarterbacks and go play the Saints. I mean, that was obviously a slaughter fest. And so there were a lot of people over the weekend talking about the discrepancy between what they do with the good teams and the bad teams. So a little consistency would be nice, but like you said, it's not a very envious position to be in at all.
Yeah, yeah, and I have a little bit of insight on the Broncos situation. I mean, we can compare that. We can actually compare that to the Titans situation to an extent, but I don't know we can do it anywhere else. The quarterbacks failed protocol, and I heard an interesting point that I forget who said it. One of the quarterbacks for Denver, but I don't want to guess which one because I don't remember which one, said that they think the league was sending a message to the rest of the teams that we're done playing around. You're causing us way too many problems, and if you violate the rules and you don't follow protocol, we have no sympathy for you. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll go back to the Titans in week 7 or whatever it was. They violated protocol, and the league was patient. It still caused a lot of problems, and so here we are. We're like a parent, you know. A parent's raising 2 kids, and then by the time they get the third one's like, I've seen all your tricks, and I'm done. And unfortunately, the older 2 got away with something the other one's not going to get away with. But I think that it sounds like that might be where we're at with the league. So, but it is, it is unfortunate. It's a butterfly effect, man. It doesn't matter where you make a decision, it affects everybody else. And the Saints and Broncos score. The Saints probably would have won anyway, right? But we don't know that. We talked about last week that this could be an upset. I mean, Denver's defense is pretty damn good. So, they get a quarterback in and I don't know, somebody starts lighting it up and something weird happens, and next thing you know, they win. So they win, it changes the whole picture all the way down. I don't think it would happen anyway, but you do get the point.
Yep.
So, all right. So the Steelers are still at the number 1 spot at 10-0. The Chiefs are the number 2 spot at 10-1. We don't know what's happening. This is where this conversation gets really interesting right out of the gate, because we don't know where this is going. We don't know what's going to happen with the Steelers and the Ravens, if it's going to be Tuesday or if it's going to be week 18 or it's not going to be at all. But for right now, this is the way it is. All right. So speaking of the Chiefs took care of their business in Tampa Bay, which hasn't been incredibly difficult to do. Unfortunately, Tampa Bay is not like the Pittsburgh Steelers defending their home turf. Big win for the Chiefs. We'll talk about what it means for the Bucks when we flip to the other side here in a minute. But in this conversation that we're talking about, the Chiefs are in the hunt for that first round spot and making a hell of a case for it. We talked about this. We keep talking about Pittsburgh. They're 10-0, and the Chiefs, you turn around and they're standing right there. You didn't know they were standing there the whole time.
Yeah, right up on them, and it doesn't look like they're letting up. I think, people were talking about, after that explosive first quarter from Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes, I think they just got comfortable and let their foot off the gas, which was a mistake. Obviously, Bucks got back in the game, but I don't think there's anything to panic about with the second half of that game. I think they were just trying to control clock, kill clock. I don't think they were worried about being explosive and whatnot. So I think the Chiefs, by the end of it, are probably going to have the number 1 seed.
Yeah, I think well, I don't know. Steelers might run the table. I'm still hanging on to that. And I know you're not a Steelers fan, and I know on social media. He made a big deal. They've had the easiest schedule or an easy schedule. I still think they can get it done. We got a long way to go. So I would say at this point on the whole agree to disagree stuff, I think you and I can both agree it's going to be one of these two teams.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't see anybody else. Everybody else is having their up and down moments. We're getting ready to get into that. I don't see one of these two teams will be in the first round bye, and the other one will be the second seed, guaranteed.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that, when it comes down to it, that can't be the Super Bowl. These are clearly the top two teams in the league. And then they're both coming out of the AFC, which is cool. My entire life, 27 years, the NFC has always been better than the AFC. So the fact that the AFC is better this year, I'm cool with.
Yeah. In my life, that wasn't always the case, but I'm right there with you. So, all right, this brings us to the third spot, and I hope you got all your emotions out on this one. The Titans may have overtaken the Colts for the rest of the way. This is a big game. It was a huge game, and everybody knew it. And I had a buddy of mine who likes to, when the Colts are doing bad, he likes to trash them, and and he sent me some derogatory messages. He's just messing with me, but sent me some derogatory messages during the game, and I thought the Colts played well. I thought the Titans just kicked the shit out of them.
Yeah, it was a lot of self-inflicted wounds, stuff we've talked about in the past, like the Browns game. I mean, the perfect example, a lot of self-inflicted wounds back when the Colts played the Browns. It was the same thing. Rocky Sin, as a Colts fan, I've tried to give him a little leeway, and, Xavier Rhodes just doesn't get targeted, so he gets targeted a lot. But Rocky Sin has been a problem this year, and the Colts were completely in that game. They would have gotten the Titans off the field and had a chance to go up 14-7, but Rocky Sin commits, two defensive pass interference calls on the same drive, one of them that gets him right to the goal line for an easy Derrick Henry touchdown. And so his mistakes alone in the first half were enough to get the Colts behind. And then Anthony Costanzo, when Anthony Costanzo leaves the game, if you go back and rewatch that game, that's the moment the Colts offense goes from looking really, really good to just sputtering the rest of the game, because LaRaven Clark, I don't know how LaRaven Clark has a job. He is complete garbage and shouldn't have a job in the NFL. He couldn't block my knees coming off the edge. I don't know how he was the guy. They left him there all day. He was a terrible fill-in for Costanzo. Ryan Kelly wasn't there, so the offense had trouble getting going. And like you said, it was just Derrick Henry was too much for the defense. And it's cool to say that you have the best second half defense, and in the second half you make all the adjustments and you clamp down, but you can't continuously let up 21, 28, 35 points in the first half and then go, okay, well, now we're not going to let you score here. It has to be a full 60 minutes. And I don't know if that's the players or if that's Eberflus, the defensive coordinator, but those adjustments have to come sooner, or they're going to continue to struggle and have to fight back in these games.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's a couple counterpoints I want to make. First of all, the Colts won the first game in dominant fashion. Right. So if you're the coaching staff for the Colts and you're preparing for Tennessee, what are you going to do? Exactly what you did 2 weeks ago. You don't fuck with it if it's not broke, you don't fix it. Take that out. I didn't mean to. If it's not broke, you don't fix it. So the Colts came in doing exactly what they did 2 weeks ago. Now, and that's part of the chess match when you play teams twice a year, right? So the Colts had the upper hand. They're coming at the same game plan. So because they won the game last time, the Titans have somewhat of an advantage because they're going to come in with something that the Colts don't. They're going to make adjustments, and the Colts don't know what they're bringing, right? So if the game's closer last time, they're both making adjustments, but you do get the point. I mean, yesterday, right, Tennessee knew that Indianapolis is pretty much going to do what they did 2 weeks ago until further notice, and they came in. Dude, that first half, they were offensively just unstoppable. I mean, Henry finished with 178 yards yesterday. Against arguably one of the top 2 or 3 defenses in the league. I got to give it to Vrabel and Tannehill. I have to give it. I have to give it over to them. The Colts, and there are drop passes. There are penalties. There are things that happen that we can pinpoint. But those things don't matter if you're not playing a good team. And the Titans just executed all day long, over and over and over and over. Now, I'm not saying that it makes them a better team, because 2 weeks ago that was the Colts over the Titans. Right. So I'm not ready to say, the Titans are that much better than the Colts. I am ready to say that both teams are legit. The Titans have finally won me over. We've talked about this all season about their legitimacy, and they've given us reason to be concerned about, just like the Bucs and just like the Saints. They've had their vulnerabilities. They're up and down. The Raiders. We're going to talk about the Raiders today. Yesterday, the Tennessee Titans can win the Super Bowl. Things go their way. It always takes good coaching, a lot of talent, and a lot of luck. Things go the Titans' way, they are capable of winning the Super Bowl. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah. I don't think it'll happen, but they're capable. Go ahead.
Yeah, sitting there, all they have to do is run Derrick Henry like they did yesterday. And obviously that game goes differently if DeForest Buckner and Danico Autry are there. But either way, Derrick Henry's still the only person since Eberflus became the defensive coordinator for the Colts. Derrick Henry's the only running back to run for 100 yards on the Colts defense. So, it's just so hard to stop him, especially when he gets going. If he gets those first 3 or 4 yards without contact, then he's running over the first person, and then there's space. So that's right. A problem. A.J. Brown in the first game dropped a pass that would have been a huge touchdown. And this game, he gets that play, and it ends up being a huge touchdown. And so, like you said, there were some things that definitely went their way. The ball didn't really bounce the Colts' way, self-inflicted wounds. And hopefully, this is one of those where I hope both of us make the playoffs. I don't care who gets what seed. I hope we both make the playoffs and we get another crack at it. And both teams get everybody healthy. I think who the Colts had out was position by position and player by player more significant than who the Titans had out. But I would like to see all those people come back for both and have 2 full healthy squads.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, because in addition to that, not only can the Titans win the Super Bowl, but the Colts are capable as well. And the road runs through KC and or Pittsburgh. We just talked about that. But both these teams deserve to be in that 3 spot, in my opinion. I don't know what your rankings, your power rankings are going to look like, but I thought the Colts played well.
Yeah, I did too.
They still put up 26 points.
26 points, yeah. For as ugly as it was, they still scored 4 touchdowns. Yeah. Statistically, in a way, Phillip Rivers didn't have his best accuracy day, at 24 for 42, but he still had almost 300 yards. I believe had the interception on a throw up down the field. It wasn't a terrible day. They just weren't able to consistently keep drives alive.
Yeah. And I'm going to give the kudos to Mike Vrabel for that. Very well done. And I'm a Mike Vrabel fan and a Tannehill fan. Dude, look, they talked about this during the game yesterday. They showed on the teleprompter. A play action pass to Derrick Henry. All 3 linebackers take a step forward. Right? That's bad enough. But Ryan Tannehill will pick your ass apart when that happens. He's good. He got blamed for he was a scapegoat down here for Adam Gase, and we're trying to cover up Adam Gase's ineffectiveness as glaringly obvious in New York. Tannehill's found a home. He's got a guy that, dude, I can't imagine being Ryan Tannehill and knowing that on that play action fake that all your linebackers have to come a step forward. You just have to. And just like, dude, just give me one step. And we saw the result of that. So all right. Let's move on. I don't want to beat a dead horse. So the Bills are in the 4th spot in the AFC, behind Tennessee for strength of schedule, with the same record. The Bills beat the Chargers yesterday. No surprises here. We figured that was going to happen.
Yeah, Justin Herbert didn't. This wasn't as flashy of a game as I thought it was. I thought this was going to be, an all-out aerial assault that we were going to see, especially with Austin Eckler back in the lineup for the Chargers. Thought it'd give them more versatility offensively, but it was more of a grind out, back and forth punch kind of game. And I think the Bills are going to have more games like that. They're without John Brown for at least another 3 weeks. Went ahead and put him on the IR, so they're a little more slim at receiver. And I mean, John Brown is somebody that really stretches the field for them. He's somebody that can break a defense deep. So they'll be in some more grind out games, but the run game finally looked decent. They finally got Singletary going a little bit. Zach Moss, a little disappointing on his yards per carry, but was able to get it in for the touchdown. He does good work near the goal line, and Josh Allen got a rushing touchdown. So as long as they can keep playing pretty good defense the way they've done their last couple games, and the offense can just figure out how to keep mixing the run and the pass well, then I think the Bills, they're not going anywhere.
So we just talked about the Colts and the Titans being legitimate enough to make a run in the postseason. Are the Bills legit? Can the Bills put it together and make a run as well?
I think the Bills are legit as long as they stay healthy, which in 2020 is a huge ask, right? But I mean, they're just a team that, with a couple injuries earlier in the season, they stumbled a little bit. So they've got to have things pretty much go, really go their way. They got to have all the balls bounce their way, to if they have a shot at getting in the playoffs. But it really rides on Josh Allen and whether or not he can keep turnovers down. When he doesn't turn the ball over, they win pretty much all the games. But when he starts getting a little reckless, if they get down in a game and he gets a little squirrely with the ball, a little Philip Riversy with the ball, and turns it over, then they're going to have issues. But he seemed pretty good about that over the last couple of weeks. Hopefully, that's something that we see continue throughout the playoffs.
Okay, fair enough. I'd like to also point out the Bills aren't locked into this. They have a 1-game lead on the Miami Dolphins for the AFC East, and there's a lot of football for both these teams. Their schedules are pretty evenly matched to an extent. I think the Dolphins may have just a slightly harder schedule because they have the Chiefs and the Raiders. So the Raiders, we're going to talk about that here in a second. That's debatable. The Bills have the Steelers, and they have the Dolphins left as well, and the 49ers. So, but it looks like the Bills have the advantage, but anything can happen, and the Dolphins are very capable of still winning this division. So we're definitely going to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, this 49ers game coming up for the Bills, they have that. And the Broncos game, I don't think is going to be a gimme with the way that defense plays. They'll keep the offense in the game. So, it's no gimme for the Bills here, no gimme for the Dolphins. We're going to see what both these teams are really made of, and if they can win games in January based on these next 5 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. The number 5 spot is the Cleveland Browns. They just keep getting it done. We knew they were going to beat the Jaguars. I'm a little concerned that it was only 27-25, but a win's still a win. And I guess the question, I don't want to talk too much about their game yesterday because it was the Jaguars, and with the remaining schedule the Browns have, do you think holding on to this 5th spot is realistic?
That it's tough, right? Because the last couple games they've kind of had it easy without OBJ. They've played the Texans, the Eagles, and the Jaguars, and that's just not saying a whole lot. But now they have to play the Titans and the Ravens just in their next 2 games, and then they have to play the Steelers to finish it. Now there's the Giants game could be more of an up in the air kind of game. We're gonna have to see if Daniel Jones comes back and monitor that situation. But it's looking iffy. They got a tough climb ahead of them, that's for sure. But the Raiders losing to the Falcons helped a lot of teams.
Yeah, they did. So let's kind of so Miami's in the 6th spot. We just talked about Miami, and they're going to battle it out with the Bills, flip flopping back and forth. The Colts are in the 7th spot. I think the Colts may have lost their shot to win the AFC South. Never say never. Crazier things are going to happen, but we talked about how critical both those games were. The Colts got the first one. I think they needed the second one. So on the bubble, on the outside looking in, is the Ravens, who are not going to get a chance to beat the Steelers, probably in their best interest. But I don't know for sure. It's an interdivision game, and if they upset the Steelers, everything changes for everybody. That chink, chink, chink all the way down the leaderboard, especially the Baltimore Ravens. They're not going to get that opportunity, whether it's good or bad. We'll leave our listeners to be the judge. That puts them at a 60% win percentage right now. At 10 games, they're at 6-4. The Colts are at 7-4 out of 11, so 7 wins. If we went to win percentage, the Colts are going to get that push. We talked about the league potentially going to win percentages, so that's where that lies. The Ravens got their work cut out for them. They've got it's like in the movies when they look down the hallway and the hallway just gets longer and longer and longer and longer, and that's got to be what it feels like for Harbaugh and Jackson and the crew right now. It just seems like every time they clear a hurdle, another one pops up in front of them.
Yeah, and hopefully they can get all that in-house stuff figured out. Hopefully the offense can get rolling, because the back of their schedule looks pretty forgiving, really. Obviously, they have the Steelers here that they have to get that game figured out, which, by the way, at 4:40 p.m. on the day we're recording this on Monday, I got a ESPN notification saying that the NFL is pondering a third postponement of the game. So we'll have to see. This game looks like it's going to be played, possibly not this week, but they still have the Steelers, they still have the Browns. Outside of that, I mean, they got the Cowboys, the Jaguars, the Giants, which may not have Daniel Jones, and then the Bengals, which obviously don't have Joe Burrow. So 4 very winnable games there. And then the Browns without Odell, we'll have to see how that goes. Interdivision games, like you say, always a little tricky, but they as long as their offense can pull it together, they should for sure make it in.
Yeah. So, and that's bad news for the Colts. That gets into that. They had to win the AFC South, which we talked about 4 or 5 weeks ago. I said on this show, I was like, if whoever wins this division is going to the playoffs and whoever doesn't is probably not going to. And this is looking ahead at the Ravens' schedule. The Ravens are 6-4. Let's assume that they either cancel or drop the game to the Steelers. They still got another 5 wins. They're at 11-4, 11-5. The Colts are at 7-4. So, they're going to have to win, drop only one. And they've got a pretty tough road ahead of them, too. So it gets really, really, really sticky from here. Now, the Raiders are the 9th position. And last week we had a conversation about the Ravens and the Colts and the Colts needing the whole AFC South debacle and that thing because the Raiders and the Ravens. And this week we just had it about the Ravens only because the Raiders, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That was the most unexpected thing of the weekend.
I mean, here's this team that the Raiders and the Dolphins, we've talked about every week that they're just getting better and better. And we were excited to see what the second half of the season and the postseason was going to bring, Chucky's experience. And all of a sudden you let a team and not only let a team like the Falcons beat you, because any given Sunday, anybody can win, but the Falcons just absolutely kicked the shit out of them. And I didn't watch the game, but I mean, I haven't really poured over the stats either, but I would imagine that nothing went right for the Raiders. It's the only way I can guess that happened.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. In my mind, and I didn't watch the whole game. I peeked in and out of it to see what was going on. I just kept seeing the score go up, up, up for the Falcons. And what I was thinking was that after that crushing defeat to the Chiefs, they were so close to beating them for the second time this year. And coming off that game, they just came out flat. I'm assuming it probably wasn't the greatest week of practice, and they came into this game and it just didn't work out. And generally you would think after a performance like that, coming off of a low like that, they're gonna come out, be fiery in practice, and whoever they have this upcoming week is going to be in trouble.
Yeah, and it's also fair to say that the Falcons teams that don't have a coach are dangerous because they're trying to figure things out from week to week, and you never know when that week that they're suddenly going it's going to click altogether for them. So this might be the beginning of a resurgence for the Falcons. They may have found something that works and be able to salvage some of the season. I don't. I mean, they're 3-7. I don't expect a whole lot. I don't want to exaggerate, but next thing you know, they could. I mean, they could finish the season 8-8 out of a 3-7 start. So that could have played in properly. And some teams just have a down day, but damn, 43-6 in this league is pretty embarrassing. So I'm not really sure. I don't want to count the Raiders out yet, but as it stands right now, that certainly, like as you said, helped everybody. I was gonna say helped the Colts, but it helped everybody.
Everybody.
On the 10th spot is the Patriots at 5-6. I know that I think it was Chris Collinsworth we talked about a couple weeks ago was talking about you can't count them out. I still don't see them working into this situation. So we're gonna move on and move over to the NFC, and we're gonna start at the number one. Is there anything else you want to say about the AFC before we move on to the NFC?
Nope, I don't believe
Okay.
so.
Okay, cool. So number one spot for the NFC, no surprise, are the New Orleans Saints. They're at 9-2, the top of the NFC South. We've already determined like the election, like they do on the presidential election. We called the NFC South a couple weeks ago. We didn't think that the Buccaneers had a chance, and obviously that has taken shape. But the big story here is, as we talked about last week, is Drew Brees. I mean, sure we can talk about the Broncos. Broncos didn't have a quarterback. Blah 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 blah. That did come into play, but let's talk about the important shit. I mean, Brees isn't coming back anytime soon. Can they win? Can they win from here out with Hill?
I don't know. Yesterday, I don't know if there probably wasn't a whole lot of passing in the Saints game plan, if I had to guess. Especially Taysom Hill being who he is. Latavius Murray actually had a really big day for the Saints on the ground rather than Alvin Kamara. Obviously, Alvin Kamara does his work, but they were just on the ground all day. Both teams, it was more of a wildcat versus wildcat kind of day. And if they can be successful in both types of offenses, they had a really good game, put a bunch of points up against the Falcons 2 weeks ago. Then this past week they put up a bunch of points against. I mean, the defense didn't have anybody missing. The defense for the Broncos didn't have anybody missing. So I mean, they still put up 31 points against a pretty damn good defense. So if they can play multiple styles of offense and make it happen, and their defense is still playing well, then I think they can do it.
The interesting thing is when we break down the schedules. So Green Bay is sitting at the second spot at 8-3. When we break down their schedules, the Saints they have a pretty easy road the rest of the way out. I mean, they have the Chiefs on their schedule, but they have the Falcons, unless the Falcons have suddenly found a resurgence, and it is an AFC South game. But the Eagles, the Vikings, which I'm so tired of talking about the Vikings, they so disappoint me. I was going to make a joke that probably wasn't going to be appropriate, so I'll keep going. And they have the Panthers, right? And when you look at the Packers, it's still not real difficult, but they have the Titans and they have the Bears in Chicago. And I know it's the Bears, but the Bears defense is still pretty nasty. It's an interdivision game and it's in Chicago. The Packers should win that game, but we've seen crazier shit happen this last weekend. So that one isn't a guaranteed win either. So the Saints have a pretty good road paved for them to go ahead and take this number one spot. Being a game ahead and looking the rest of the way out, it looks like that they should be favored to do so.
Yeah, that's what I would think too. I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers finish the season 5-0 from here. But like you said, it just looks like the Saints are in the driver's seat. The Kansas City New Orleans game is going to be a hell of a game to watch. No matter who the quarterback is for New Orleans, it's going to be a really entertaining game.
And it might be your Super Bowl.
And very well might be the Super Bowl. and I think that's going to be the game that decides who gets first and who gets second. Because I think the Saints might lose that game, and I think they'll go 4-1 if they lose that game. I think the Packers go 5-0 from here and can tie it up. I guess you would go strength of schedule to see who gets first from there, and maybe the Saints still get it. But either way, the Packers and the Saints are the class of the NFC this year.
All right. So in the event of a tie between the Packers and the Saints, the Packers on strength of schedule, they have a harder schedule. So I'm going to assume if the Packers finish 5-0 and the Saints are only 4-1 if they lose to the Chiefs, then the Packers will take the number one spot. That's the only way I see that happening.
Yep.
So those are pretty good odds for the Saints, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I like their chances better if Drew Brees was at quarterback against the Chiefs. I think they would win that game. But as of right now, I don't think they'll be able to beat the Chiefs with Taysom Hill.
Now, how weird the Saints can piece this together and make it into the playoffs, and Drew Brees finally comes back. What a sensational, especially if he comes back for the Super Bowl, right? Since how sensational that would be.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Perfect time.
All right. So let's move on to the next spot. The number 3 spot currently goes to the Seattle Seahawks. And they are at the top of the NFC West at 7-3, and the Rams are right behind them at 7-4. So they're basically tied with the Rams for right now in this spot. And as we have gone over and over and over, I don't want to keep kicking this horse here, but this race is by far anywhere close to being over, as these two teams just keep beating the hell out of each other. So we've said everything we need to say, as far as that's concerned. What are your thoughts on that?
So there's a declaration I want to make. Okay, we saw the 49ers. They got Richard Sherman and Raheem Mostert back this past week. And while I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders, I do think that by the end of the season, the Cardinals are going to be out and the Niners are going to be in.
That's a bold prediction. What? That's a good guess. What did he say? That's a good guess. How'd you come up with that? So I need to throw in here. The 49ers beat the Rams yesterday. So I don't, anybody that just shook their head when you said that's listening. That's a pretty bold statement because the Rams are at the top of their game. I would have never expected. We've talked about how good the 49ers are all year, but they beat the Rams yesterday in this division. It just keeps happening. Unfortunately, Seattle is going to win tonight. We know that. They should win tonight.
Yeah, if they lose tonight, it'd be just as surprising as the Raiders getting slaughtered in Atlanta.
That's exactly right. And crazier things have happened and are happening. So anyway, right now the Seahawks are at the 3rd spot, subject to be taken over by the Cardinals or the Rams. And you heard it from Hefe, the 49ers at any moment. The 4th spot is the New York Giants. I think this is where it's going to stay. Well, I guess they lost Jones, huh?
Yeah. Up until they lost Danny Dimes, I thought they for sure were going to take this division, but it's looking more like a Alex Smith, Washington kind of thing now.
How crazy. The Giants are in first place at 4-7. We thought they were going to lock it up, and you're predicting they're going to lose it to Washington, who is what? Are they also 4-7? Yeah. So here's New York at the top of their division at 4-7. The Eagles are going to lose to the Seahawks probably, and the Giants think they're going to start surging ahead and taking this. They lose their quarterback, and now the Washington football team at 4-7 is probably your predicted winner.
That's a quarterback with a fake leg, and they're still going to win the division.
Yeah. They don't deserve us to talk about that anymore. Let's move on. And probably quickly, 5th is the Rams. We just talked about that. They lost to the 49ers. This whole division, these 4 teams are going to interchange every week. The next week, I don't want to keep talking about it. and keep saying the same stuff over and over and over. But if you're a true football fan and you're not paying attention to what's going out the NFC West, you're missing out, because this is what it should be like right here, not this NFC East crap. Number 6 spot is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I would say they're in danger of not making the playoffs. I really don't believe that. I don't think the Bears are going to. I don't think the Bears have a whole lot in them. The Vikings, yeah, I don't know what's going on in Minnesota. I'm tired of talking about that. So the 49ers are the only chance to really bump the Buccaneers out. But because of the way what's going on in the NFC West, the 49ers have to chew up other NFC West teams and knock them down farther. I think if the Buccaneers can just maintain the status quo and I mean, what do they got? They're 7-5, so they got 4 games left. If they can go 2-2, I think they're still in, and I think there's a pretty good possibility of that happening.
Oh yeah, they get the latest possible bye week. Them and the Panthers, I know, are on a bye this week, and after their bye week, they get the Vikings, the Falcons, the Lions, and then the Falcons again. So essentially, 4 games they should win. Now we got to see, like you said, what's going on with the Falcons. They seem to be really, really good one week, really, really bad the next. So we'll have to find out what happens when those games come up. But seemingly 4 very winnable games that should be able to get them into the playoffs. But there's been inconsistent, it's just so crazy to think that there's inconsistency in that offense. You have Tom Brady, the perceived GOAT, and then Mike Evans, and all the weapons. We've talked about it a million times. It's just I don't know how. People always talk about the Bruce Arians system, and it's so hard to figure out, and this and that. But it's just continuous struggles coming from the best quarterback of all time with all those weapons. It's not something that seems like it's getting fixed right now. Hopefully they can get it fixed in the bye week, but I don't see that happening. I think they'll struggle and limp their way into the playoffs and then lose in the first round.
Yeah, I think you may be right. Going on the backside, something we talked about the other day was Bruce Arians' handling of Tom Brady in the media. And we talked a little bit about that's the way Arians is. And, I talked about that I don't care if that's the way you are at some point. I mean, getting the guy's attention in the beginning is one thing, but dragging this out could be detrimental to the team. Charles Davis was the color commentator for the Colts-Titans game yesterday, and he had a great point about Bruce Arians. Did you hear him talk about this?
Oh, I didn't hear it.
He kept talking about how smart Bruce Arians was. I mean, that's not remarkable. I know that. And then to hear him talk about it, I was just shaking my head. Yeah, okay. And this guy's got more information than me. It just corroborates what I already knew. But he said that based on his knowledge of how Bruce Arians works, that he doesn't believe that Arians is, not only does he not believe that Arians is reckless enough to call Brady out in the media simply because he can't control his comments or that's his personality. He believes it's a calculated tactic maneuver between Arians and Brady to get everybody else's attention, like nobody's above it here. And I thought that was a fantastic. That makes more sense than anything we've talked about.
Yeah, I could see that. The little bit I know about Bruce Arians, obviously we have experience with him. He was the Colts coach, but even when he was with the Cardinals and now with the Bucks, just a fascinating coach to watch and see what he's been doing. And so, yeah, I'd believe it. All the interviews I've ever seen with him, I could definitely see him having that line of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about, and I love the guy, but we're not talking about Jim Mora, right? Who just becomes unhinged and gives you everything, it gives the media everything they want. I mean, that's what wasn't making sense with Arians until he said that yesterday, and it made all the sense in the world. Of course, as he was thinking, I was like, well, it's cool that you know that and you shared that information with me, but now the rest of the team knows it, and probably it's going to lose its effectiveness. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. I thought that was an interesting point that we talked about with them. So, in the eighth spot on the bubbles, the Vikings. I mean, the Vikings did pull one off yesterday that I thought they weren't going to all day until they, finally pulled it out. Man, I don't know what's going on with them. We keep talking about it. It's confession time. I mean, we've kind of alluded to this. I chose them to win the NFC North before the year started, and I feel like a Lions fan is what I feel like, because every week when I think something amazing is getting ready to happen, the next week something just completely opposite happens. I don't see them doing anything. The Bears in the ninth spot at 5-6. I think the Bears have a better shot of trying to work their way into this mess than the Vikings do. I don't see that happening either. So I think there's one thing for sure. We've talked about this already, and we'll reinforce it. The AFC teams are almost pretty set. The 7 or 8 teams are right there. But in the NFC, there's still a lot going to happen over there.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to mention is that I heard that, I just didn't hear this. This is happening. To what level, I don't know, but this is actually happening. That Detroit Lions fans are donating are donating to Deshaun Watson's charity with thank you notes because he helped get Matt Patricia fired.
That is awesome.
It's 2020, man. This is the world we live in. I thought that was too good not to share.
That's classic.
Yeah. All right. So we still don't know about the Steelers-Ravens game. We talked about that.
I got one more breaking news note on that Steelers-Ravens game real quick.
Here we go. Let's hear it.
As of about 5 o'clock on Monday, it came out that the Ravens-Steelers game is officially moved to Wednesday. They have postponed it to Wednesday now.
Well, upon that news of you reading that, I just looked this up, and apparently the last Wednesday night game was Wednesday, September 5th, 2012. So that isn't that sensational, other than it really screws a lot of games up. Because wasn't Baltimore, I don't know what I heard. Anyway.
They had to, well, I think I know what you were thinking, though, because they had to move Baltimore's game that was supposed to be Sunday to Monday after they moved their game to Tuesday. And so you would assume they're probably going to go ahead and move what was supposed to be a Monday game next week to Tuesday to give them that same window.
Yeah. Of course, then you still have the same problem the following week, but we'll get there when we get there, right?
Yeah. I guess they could treat it like a Thursday night game and say, you guys did this to yourself, 5 days rest, here you go.
Yeah, suck it up. The show must go on. So, okay. Well, I don't even know who won our pick'em this week. Do you know?
Willie. I think he got 2 more
Willie.
than everybody. Yep.
Big shout out to Westside Willie. I actually have another one I have to do here. Hold on. So yeah, that little tidbit of information initially came from my nephew, Kellen, and I wanted to give him a big shout out for sharing the information about Deshaun Watson Lions, and thank him for being a big supporter and watching the show. All right, you got anything else you want to add before we go?
No, not really, man. Just goddamn, I hope the Colts can beat the Texans, dude.
A little worried about that one, are you?
Yeah.
The Texans fit right in with what we were talking about with the Falcons. The Texans are a good team. That something was gone fatally wrong with their coaching for whatever. And we made a lot of jokes about Bill O'Brien, but you don't ascend to that position unless you know what you're doing, right? It becomes where he's outsmarted himself. I mean, he made some decisions he shouldn't have made, but if those pay off, he's a genius, right? So the Texans are a good football team, and they just don't have any direction. And when they find it, they're dangerous, and they could find it anyway, just like the Falcons did on yesterday. So as a Colts fan, we should be scared. It's an interdivision game against a team that has a lot of talent, and you don't know what to expect. They know what Indianapolis is bringing Sunday, right? I don't know the same can be said. You can't win a fight with someone that has nothing to lose. Don't ever forget that.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what scares me. I mean, Deshaun Watson is, I don't care what anybody has to say about him. There are a lot of people that have been down on him this year, like, oh, he can only do it with DeAndre Hopkins. Well, no, he's still one of the best 5 quarterbacks in the league. He can still make plays out of absolutely nothing. You think you got him, and he pops out of it like Eli Manning in the Super Bowl against the undefeated Patriots. And so there's always that element of God damn, I hope he doesn't do it to us. Because then you have you got to stop Will Fuller. He can explode down the field. But we can get more into that in our weekly preview show.
Yeah, for sure. We will get into that, and we drop that on Thursday. All right, it isn't too late to go head to head against us in the weekly pick and battle. Big shout out to Westside Willie for winning this week. It's still not over, but I think we probably all picked the same teams. I mean, everybody picked the Seahawks over the Eagles. So anyway, if you are interested in joining us, it's free. Hop onto our Facebook, Twitter page of Horsemen Sports, where you can find the link to join and perhaps win a prize and get a shout out, maybe get on air with us to represent your team. Also, on Wednesday, check out Hefe's weekly power rankings, see how your team matches up, and let him know what you think. He loves to hear your feedback. You can find it on our Facebook and Twitter pages, also Horsemen Sports. Into fantasy football, check out our weekly episode of Fantasy Central, where Zach and Hefe will cover this week's top waiver wire picks, must-starts, and players to avoid this coming week. And, of course, we will see you back here on Thursday for this coming Week 13 Picks and Preview show, and we will discuss the Colts and the Texans in greater detail, along with some other teams. So until then, we want to thank you again for joining us. We appreciate the support. Enjoy the games, and we'll see you Thursday.